Hello there, my RPG lovers, and welcome to another video. Fatekeeper is an upcoming first-person dark fantasy action RPG. This game looks freaking amazing, and it's one of my most anticipated upcoming RPGs. It basically looks like something I expected to see from Avowed when Obsidian released that first trailer. It's a brutal, dark fantasy RPG which has some heavy resemblance to old school games like Dark Messiah of Might and Magic. There is some info you might have missed, even if you watched all the trailers and gameplay footage for this game. So I compiled all the info about this game that I could find from written articles, videos and similar sources. I also noticed some interesting things by myself, and I'm going to speculate a little bit about some features.
The road is as perilous as it is joyless.
The players will take the control of a druid who is accompanied by a rat follower. Currently we don't know much about the story of Fatekeeper, except the fact that it's going to have a focused narrative path. I guess that's another way to say that the story is going to be linear, but we'll have to wait for some more info before we make any further assumptions. We can see that the main character is going to interact with the rat every now and then, which seems to happen at the beginning of a new map or a quest. The majority of marketing material for this game is heavily focused on showing the gameplay so far, which is always a great sign. It's obvious that Fatekeeper is going to be a gameplay-first RPG with some story elements, and more importantly, the gameplay itself looks very good. For the most part, we can see the player using melee weapons, but Fatekeeper is supposed to have a deep progression system that supports a wide range of viable and unique builds. There is a magic system as well, which works off mana, while the melee combat has a stamina system. We could see some clips where the player uses a couple of different magic spells. He even uses environment to his advantage, which is a huge reason why this game has some serious Dark Messiah of Might and Magic vibes. That game could be renamed into Kick Simulator, and what do you know, the druid in Fatekeeper can also kick people. The magic in this game also looks inspired by Dark Messiah. We can see the player character using environment to his advantage quite a bit, with spells especially. Whether you lean into raw strength, nimble precision or devastating sorcery, the game supports a wide range of viable and unique builds. That's how the developers describe the progression system in Fatekeeper. It's going to be interesting to see those unique builds in action, because the videos we got to watch so far are only showing one very simple way to play the game. I always have concerns about first-person action RPGs because most of them struggle with combat systems and gameplay in general. You end up being very limited in terms of animations and combat mechanics in general because of the perspective. But as long as you do the fundamentals right, which Fatekeeper seems to handle quite well, this shouldn't be a problem. The combat seems to pack quite a punch, it looks and sounds impactful. Stamina and mana bars are similar to pretty much all other RPGs, it seems. Your attacks, dodges and probably other similar actions are using stamina, but judging from the examples we could see in these videos, the stamina system is not aggressive. Although we have no idea if this is because the player in the video is a higher level with possible improvements to stamina, or if the gear he's wearing is reducing the stamina usage. The step dodge looks like a crucial mechanic in the game, and it also uses stamina, as expected. Actually, the step dodge is called dash, and we can see how the cost for the dash reduces once the player equips a new piece of armor. Not only that, but even the movement speed itself is heavily affected by armor, it seems. This is one of the strongest examples that we could see related to those unique builds they mentioned. And speaking of armor, we'll be able to equip two armor pieces, the chest and the helmet. Two melee weapons that can be switched with the press of a button, 4 slots for rings and 1 slot for amulets. And 4 more rings on the other side, although I'm not sure if this makes a lot of sense. Maybe this is going to be switchable and only one of these 4 slots can be active at once, because equipping 8 rings seems a bit too much, I don't know. It will be the only RPG that I ever played that allows you to equip 8 rings. However, they also mentioned relics as some important items in the game, so maybe some of these slots are reserved for such items. The 4 slots at the bottom of the screen seem to be reserved for consumable items. We still didn't get to see the skill tree or the spell stab. When they get to show us this in some future updates, we'll get a much better idea what kind of builds we can actually play in the game. And I'll be there to cover that as well when the time comes, so make sure to subscribe. I think one of the reasons the combat looks pretty good in this game is the directional hits and how enemies react to them. This is especially noticeable because of the first-person combat, because you're obviously closer to action. On top of that, we have some very brutal finishing moves. I can't remember the last time when a first-person RPG had such visceral animations and finishing moves. It looks very impactful and satisfying. If you guys watch a lot of my video reviews, you probably know that I always prefer a third-person action RPG. But this looks very appealing to me, and I don't think I have to explain why. I'm really interested in seeing different playstyles and builds and how much that's going to affect the gameplay in general. I hope some of their future updates and videos will showcase some different builds they were talking about. Cutting off limbs is a thing in this game, and it seems to be tied to finishing animations. Dismemberment effects follow the directional attacks, it seems, which is another small but very important detail that makes the combat look very cool and immersive. Immersion is a huge part of pretty much all first-person RPGs, so having such attention to detail, especially within the gameplay systems, is very cool to see. It seems like these finishing moves can be triggered when enemies are stunned or staggered. We can't see the health bars on enemies from these videos, but the player was able to stun and instantly execute some smaller enemies, like when he performed the neck snapping finisher. I don't know what to think about the lack of health bars on enemies, and if that's actually going to be the case in the full game. It certainly looks way more immersive like this, but there needs to be something that will indicate how much health the enemy has left. Maybe they'll do something similar to Monster Hunter games and try to show the injuries on enemies, which they kind of do in this fight a little bit. Or they'll simply add the health bar somewhere on the enemy, we have no idea. The mini-boss or elite fight in this trailer is nothing special, but once again, very cool and brutal. The way the player beats this enemy is simply by using the dash, basic attacks, and some oil he puts on the weapon before the fight. This is probably part of their Alchemy system, which they featured in one of their Steam updates. The Alchemy system in Fatekeeper should allow the player to combine 3 ingredients to craft potions, weapons, vials, or hand bombs. Ingredients contribute individual effects, enabling free-form experimentation, while discovered recipes unlock specialized items with unique properties. I'm pretty sure the oil the player uses here is one of the items you can craft with alchemy, but we have no idea how useful that's actually going to be. Once again, I love this little attention to details because the player is physically putting the oil on the weapon. Now let's talk a little bit more about those finishing moves, because they kind of stole the show in both of those videos. I mean, they look pretty scripted in general, but still pretty damn cool. We can see the player cutting the head of a dragon in one scene, but the finishing move against this big monster is definitely the coolest of the bunch. If I would have to guess, these are going to be just finishing moves, but there might be some depth to these mechanics within the skill tree. Whatever the case might be, chopping limbs from these monsters looks extremely satisfying. Speaking of monsters, in one of their Steam posts they talked about various enemy types we're going to fight in Fatekeeper. All of these enemies are supposed to have distinct patterns, strengths and weaknesses. Success demands both skill and preparation. I guess putting oil on your weapons is one form of preparation that we could see, but there might be more. As we can see here, the creatures they showcased look pretty damn cool. Most of these enemies are even showcased in the videos we got to watch. I only hope we get to see a lot more enemy types in the game, which is probably going to be the case. The fights we got to see against these enemies so far look pretty damn good, but I think this is just the tip of the iceberg. Now let's talk a little bit about the level design. The level design in Fatekeeper is not going to be very open, but from what we could see from these videos and from some written info about the game, it's not supposed to be very linear. It's certainly not an open world game or anything like that, but it should have alternative and optional paths that we can take on these levels. These videos are showcasing some dense areas and vertical level design, and they usually have at least a couple of different paths to take. This is how the devs describe the level design and the world in Fatekeeper. Ancient battlegrounds, vast underground caverns and serene forests to crumbling sanctuaries, each area rewards curiosity with hidden lore, forgotten relics and unexpected encounters. The world isn't just a backdrop, it's one of the main characters. From dark tangled forests and wind-scoured mountain ridges to vast forgotten underground cities that once teemed with life, the player will journey through a wide variety of places, each with its own tone, history and sense of purpose. I mean, that sounds cool, but they didn't say a lot about the structure or the level design, even though we can see clearly what to expect from the level design by watching these videos. It looks like an old school level design, which could be great if done properly. This reminded me of a great action adventure from 2025 called Blades of Fire. That game also adopted a more focused exploration, it was not an open world game. However, the verticality and the sheer variety of levels made the level design very interesting in general. I hope Fatekeeper tries to do something similar, but we'll have to wait for some more info before we can talk more in depth about the level design. They also showcased some of the off-beaten path footage, where the player can find some hidden gear, which is pretty cool. So I guess we have to keep our eyes open and be curious enough to find cool things in the game. This gameplay video ends in a very dark crypt where we have to use a torch. We got to see another scene from a dungeon before, so I guess we can expect at least some dungeon crawling in the game, along with some light puzzles. Another thing they talked about quite a bit in one of their Steam posts is the hub area. It seems like most of these semi-open games nowadays have some sort of a hub area. Fatekeeper is no different. The hub area in this game is going to be called Haven. They said we won't be alone here, obviously. We're supposed to find NPCs like traders and quite possibly some story NPCs who will have some quests for us. Their stories are not told all at once, and some truths take some time to surface. I guess they are hinting at some quests that can't be done right away, but I'm not exactly sure. Or it's just about some plot twists for some of those NPCs. Besides that, we'll probably do some alchemy here and prepare for the upcoming levels. And that will be all the info we have about Fatekeeper so far.
Let's see how choosy you'll be when the void invites you in.
I'm really looking forward to this game, and I'll try to cover it on a regular basis when we get more updates. We still don't have a release date, but judging from these videos, the game seems to be in the late development stage. We don't know that for sure, obviously, but everything they showcased so far seems to be very polished. Anyways, tell me your opinion about Fatekeeper in the comments below. Are you excited for this game, and did you play Dark Messiah of Might and Magic back in the day, maybe? Leave a comment down below. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more content like this. And if you want to go a step further, consider supporting your boy by becoming a YouTube channel member or a Patreon. Huge thanks to all my current supporters, and I'll see ya in the next one.